Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. Todd Chrisley returns to Florida prison shortly after pardon. Todd Chrisley returned to the Florida prison shortly after his pardon. This is the prison he was in the entire time he was incarcerated. However, he has returned after not being out for very long. Fans are shocked by this. There is also a new Chrisley show that is coming out soon, which will show all of the details about what happened. Keep reading to find out more about this situation. Chrisleys get pardoned from prison after 2 years. Todd and Julie Chrisley were in federal prison for over 2 years. Their daughter, Savannah Chrisley, made it her mission to get her parents out. Recently, Donald Trump pardoned them, and they got to go home. The two are still claiming that they did nothing wrong. However, fans are unsure what to believe at this point. Regardless, they are back home with their family, which is important. A new show is in the works that is going to shine a light on how hard it was for their family and what they went through. However, since they were pardoned, it is also going to show videos of Todd and Julie reuniting with each other and their family. Todd Chrisley returns to Florida prison after pardon. Todd Chrisley has returned to the Florida prison after his pardon. However, it seems as though he was speaking at the final residential drug abuse program graduation ceremony. The Pensacola prison is closing, so they were doing a final ceremony before the prison closed. This is something Todd really wanted to do, not only for himself, but for the other men in the prison. It seems as though Todd was going back to speak at a ceremony. This was important for him to do. When he was pardoned, he mentioned how he hated leaving all the men he got to know behind. So he went back to being a speaker and felt like this was what he had to do. Fans are wondering if this brought up any old feelings for him or not. The Florida sun hung heavy over the low, razor-wired fences of the federal prison camp in Pensacola, its heat shimmering off the asphalt like a mirage. Reporters swarmed just outside the gates, their microphones and cameras trained on the white van that had pulled up with tinted windows. The air was electric, a mix of confusion and disbelief. Only weeks earlier, Todd Chrisley, the patriarch of Chrisley Knows Best, a reality television personality known for his sharp wit and even sharper wardrobe, had received a pardon. It was a headline that had shocked both his loyal fans and his harshest critics. After months of petitions, letters of support from celebrity friends, and the unyielding advocacy of his daughter Savannah, Todd had been freed with the belief that his time behind bars was finished. But this morning was different. Todd, dressed not in his usual tailored blazer, but in prison khakis once more, stepped out of the van with the familiar posture of a man trying to control the narrative even as it spiraled around him. His head was held high, his jaw set, and though he walked briskly toward the gates, he couldn't resist glancing at the cameras, flashing a tight smile. "Back again," he murmured to himself. The guards nodded, almost sympathetically, as though they too didn't quite understand why he was here. Confusion in the Chrisley camp. For Savannah Chrisley, who had spent the past year transforming herself into both caretaker and crusader for her parents' freedom, the news hit like a blow to the chest. She had documented every step of her family's legal struggles, recording podcasts, giving interviews, and even taking on the guardianship of her younger brother Grayson. To hear that her father had voluntarily returned to prison, even after being pardoned, was unthinkable. "Daddy doesn't just go back," she told a producer of her new reality project. "He fights. He always fights. So why is he walking into that place like he belongs there?" Savannah's voice cracked, but her resolve hardened. She immediately booked a flight to Florida, determined to get answers. A man of contradictions. Inside, Todd was greeted by the dull thrum of prison life. The buzz of fluorescent lights, the scrape of plastic lunch trays, the low murmur of men playing cards at metal tables. It was strange how quickly it all came back to him, as though he had never left. But Todd hadn't returned because of unfinished time. He had returned because of unfinished business. During his earlier months of incarceration, Todd had been privy to things most Americans never hear about. Whispers in the yard, stacks of papers circulating quietly among inmates, rumors of corruption within the prison's own system. Todd had collected it all, storing it like a squirrel saving acorns, and when he was released, he had promised himself that he would shine a light on what he had witnessed. But the spotlight of freedom had made that more complicated than he had expected. Offers came in, book deals, television specials, interviews with networks eager to cash in on his story. And yet, when he looked in the mirror of his Nashville home, surrounded by designer furniture and old reminders of the life he once flaunted, Todd realized something: he wasn't done. The pardon had freed him, but his conscience was restless. "I have to finish what I started," Todd had told Julie in one of their limited phone calls. "If I walk away, I'll never forgive myself. They'll keep doing what they're doing to the men in there, and I'll just be another reality star who cashed out on scandal." Julie, ever pragmatic even while facing her own prison sentence, had been quiet before answering. "If you're going back," she whispered, "then make sure it's worth it." Back behind the walls. Now Todd paced the common room, already sketching out how he would re-enter his role, not as an inmate defeated, but as a kind of undercover watchdog. He spoke with men he had met before, slipping into conversations as if they had only paused overnight. One inmate, a wiry man named Leonard, smirked when he saw him. "Thought you were out for good, Chrisley." "I was," Todd replied smoothly. "But honey, sometimes you gotta go back to get it right." Leonard chuckled, shaking his head. "Only you would come back here when the door was wide open." Outside pressure mounts. Meanwhile, the media frenzy only grew. Headlines screamed contradictions. Chrisley pardon revoked. Reality star returns voluntarily. Savannah slams system. "They're playing games with my dad." Politicians scrambled to distance themselves. Legal experts speculated wildly. And in Nashville, fans lit up social media with hashtags like #FreeToddAgain and #ChristleyReturns. Some claimed he had been tricked. Others argued it was part of a bigger federal strategy. And still others insisted Todd was staging the ultimate publicity stunt. But those closest to him knew it wasn't for show. Todd, for all of his love of theatrics, had always been a man who couldn't ignore injustice when it stared him in the face. Savannah's confrontation. 2 days later, Savannah was granted visitation. She walked into the sterile room, her blonde hair pulled back in a no-nonsense ponytail, her eyes blazing. "Why are you here?" she demanded before even sitting down. Todd leaned forward across the scratched plastic table, his hands folded neatly, his voice calm. "Because sometimes, sweetheart, the truth doesn't get told unless someone is willing to sit in the middle of it." Savannah's eyes filled with tears. "You had a chance to be free, to be home, to be with me, with Grayson, with Chloe. And you walked back in here?" Todd reached out, his fingertips brushing the table. "I'm not walking back, Savannah. I'm walking forward. If I expose what I've seen, if I make enough noise, maybe things will change, not just for me, but for the men in here who don't have a daughter like you fighting for them." Savannah stared at him, torn between admiration and heartbreak. A different kind of stage, days turned into weeks, and Todd settled back into prison life with an odd sense of purpose. He wrote letters, kept meticulous notes, and encouraged other inmates to share their stories. Slowly, he became not just a former reality star behind bars, but a kind of unofficial spokesperson for the voiceless. The irony wasn't lost on him. His old television tagline had been about knowing best. Now, in the most unlikely of places, he was living up to it.